Hello everyone, welcome to Diagnose It. So now let's discuss our new case. So a 5-year-old child is presented with the oculocutaneous albinism, immunodeficiency, bleeding tendency, and the neurological manifestation. The albinism can be seen in the image as the child is having silvery white hair, silvery white, and in some cases the grayish hair is also present. So based on these findings, we can say that it is a case of Chediak Higashi syndrome. Chediak Higashi syndrome, also known as CHS. So talking about the Chediak-Higashi syndrome, so it is an autosomal recessive disorder. Is autosomal recessive disorders which is caused due to the mutation in the lysosomal trafficking regulator gene, that is the LIST gene mutation. So what happens in Chediak-Higashi syndrome? There is mutation in the LIST gene. LIST gene. So what is this LIST gene? It is the lysosomal trafficking regulator gene. It is also known as the CHS1 gene, where the CHS stands for the Chediak-Higashi syndrome. Along with controlling the lysosomal trafficking, this gene also regulates the synthesis, fusion, and transport of the cytoplasmic granules. Now, what happens due to the mutation in this LIS gene? There is decreased phagocytosis, and the person becomes more susceptible to bacterial infection. That is, there is increased chances of bacterial infection. Bacterial infection. The LIS gene is present in chromosome 1. It is present in chromosome 1's long arm, and written as 1q 4243. The onset of this disease is typically after birth and under the age of up to 5 years. Now let's discuss about what happens in this Chediak-Higashi syndrome. So as we know that there is this mutation in the LIS gene, and hence due to which the protein synthesis is disrupted, and along with the disruption of the protein synthesis, the storage and synthesis of lysosomal granules is also affected in leukocytes as well as in melanosomes of melanocytes and dense bodies of platelets. So now on the cytological examination, there is a very characteristic feature which is observed, that is there is presence of this large fused azurophilic granules. As we can also see in the image, there is presence of large fused azurophilic granules. So what are these granules? These are formed due to the abnormal fusion of primary and secondary granules. So in lymphocytes, the lymphocytes with these granules, they show the poor antibody dependent cell mediated cytolysis. There occurs the alteration in neutrophils, and hence the neutropenia is also observed in Chediak-Higashi syndrome. So now, in basically what in normal condition what happens is that the phagosome fuses with the lysosome, and hence there is formation of phagolysosomal complex. So after the formation of this phagolysosomal complex, the lysosomal enzymes they kill the bacteria, and hence the bacteriolysis happens. But due to the mutation of this LIST gene and this presence of these azurophilic granules, this process is affected. The chemotaxis is impaired, and hence the phagolysosomal formation is also delayed. Due to which there is decreased phagocytosis and there is increased risk of infections. Also, the cytotoxic T cells, they release the perforins and granzymes, which induce the apoptosis in the targeted cells. Due to this defect in this LIST gene, the formation or the release of these perforin and granzymes they decrease, and hence the apoptosis is not induced. Due to which the person also becomes susceptible to viral infections. Talking about the diagnosis part, so clinically a diagnosis should be considered in individuals that exhibit the signs of immunodeficiency, the pigment dilution of skin, and also of the eyes and hairs, and the person who is showing the unexpected signs of neurological symptoms or the neurodegeneration. So unexpected CNS abnormality. So in these individuals, there is a chance of Chediak Higashi syndrome. The diagnosis can be made based on the presence of the abnormally large granules, which are mainly present in the granulocytes and monocytes, and these are also seen in the melanocytes and platelets. So what are these granules? They are the eosinophilic granules, as we talked in the previous section. Eosinophilic granules. So these are the presence of these granules is a typical feature of Shide-Higashi syndrome. So it is very helpful in making a diagnosis. Now talking about the treatment of this disease, as said, this disease does not have any specific treatment, but the only supportive therapies which can give is that we can give the patient with the hematopoietic, allogenic hematopoietic stem cell transplantation. So it was one of the therapies which we can give to the patient. By correcting the refracting errors of the eye, the visual activity of the patient can be removed. The sunglasses can be used to protect the eyes against the sensitive UV rays. The use of sunscreen can also be used to prevent the skin cancer. So this was all about the Shide-Kikashi syndrome, which is basically presented with the typical characteristic symptoms such as the presence of oculocutaneous albinism, recurrent pyogenic infections, easy bruising, and increased chances of bleeding, and also the CNS manifestation. So these were some of the typical features of this disease. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share Diagnose It, and also do follow us on Instagram. Thank you.